stage for you a little bit, and Rose and I will kind of share the story. And Lou, you want to?
I have so many questions. Believe me, yeah.
So we live in Dayton, Ohio, in the States, and we decided that we wanted to have a family vacation, and we decided to have it around the U.S. Thanksgiving because that's when our children could find days off. So we looked for some place warm that we go to, and we found a really good idea in St. Croix, U.S. Virgin Islands. So Rose and I, and at the time one of our sons, Stephen, arrived on Monday night, November 21st. Had dinner, got up. The next morning, Rose and I went for a nice walk along the beach. We just came from Dayton, Ohio, where it was a little bit dark, a little bit cold, and now all of a sudden we're back on the beach and the sun and all that. We just had a really great time talking and enjoying the water and the ocean. And we decided that we were going to go to the Carambola tide pools in St. Croix. And if you were to, if you ever visit St. Croix, the tide pools are one of the top 2 or 3 attractions that everybody goes to.
Mm-hmm.
So we were going to check it out and see if there was something we want to take the rest of the family to. So, I had done a lot of preparation. We made sure we did everything that was to be safe. And so we took a really nice 2 or 3 mile hike through the rainforest that brought us down to the beach. We then had to walk maybe about 300 yards out to the tide pool. And if you aren't familiar with tide pools, they're basically just volcanic rock that forms out in the ocean. It blocks basically most or all of the waves. So you can be walking in water that's maybe anywhere from a foot deep to 2 feet deep. It's the ocean, but you don't have waves crashing on you, and you can see little fish, and you can just enjoy it. And that's what we were doing. And so we walked from one tide pool, went into a second one. We had noticed this one place where the water was pooling and was going down, so we knew there was a hole there. Didn't know anything about it, but we said we need to avoid that hole because you could twist your ankle or hurt your knee or something like that. So Stephen and I got into the tide pool and we're walking around. Rose was standing up on the wall. We took a couple of pictures, and then we decided we'd seen enough, and we said it's time to go. It's time to go back. So I had noticed up against the shore just a crevice that I wanted to go check out. So I was walking in water that was maybe 18 inches deep, and unbeknownst to any of us, the trade winds, which we didn't know a whole lot about, we know now, had shifted and brought in some what we basically called 3 large rogue waves, which you all can probably relate to.
Yes, we can.
And yeah, what was 18 inches of water that I was walking in comfortably, all of a sudden was maybe 4 feet of angry water that had come crashing over and through the wall. And all that water wants to return back out to the ocean. So I was immediately knocked over because the power of the water was incredible. And as I was telling Lou, it felt like I was in a water slide. Or maybe in a riptide, right, where you're kind of tumbling, you don't know where you are, where you're going, you get pulled in a direction that you didn't expect. I was getting pulled around. I surfaced briefly, saw Rose, who was standing up on the rocks, and told her that I'd lost my glasses and my hat and my shoes. And then the next moment, I disappeared.
Wow.
And what happened was I had gotten sucked down this hole that we had seen previously. And as it turns out, miraculously, was dumped or pushed into a small, pitch-black cavern. The best I can describe it is, the size of it, although I couldn't see, I could feel, was kind of like a walk-in closet. So not very big. But the water was up to my armpits. There was a few feet of space in which I could breathe. And this is where the title of the book comes from is I was standing on a ledge of rock. And I know that to my right there was more rock, but to my left I couldn't see and I couldn't tell. And so I didn't know if that was the ocean floor was 2 feet, 20 feet, or 200 feet lower. I just knew that ledge was my one salvation. And so now I'm standing on a ledge of rock in a dark place. It's completely black. I cannot see anything. I don't know where I am compared to where I had been before. And the waves would come in behind me, and they would pick me up and slam me against the rocks, and then they'd pick me up and I would hit the ceiling of this cave, banging my head, and then I'd come back down and luckily land on the ledge. And so that's where I was, in a place where I didn't know where I'd been before and I didn't have any way out. Rose, I'm going to turn to you. Maybe you can give your perspective on it now.
So, I was standing on that wall, and I was not knocked by a wave at all. Knocked over at all. I was just there waiting for things to calm down. Both he and Stephen couldn't get their feet. They're flailing. My son is yelling at him to keep his butt up like we're in whitewater rafting. Protect yourself, whatever. And Dean couldn't hurt him because Dean was back under. And I was just frozen, waiting for things to calm down. We were in this calm, idyllic pool. And Dean was pulled from the cliffside all the way to right in front of me and was looking up at me and then disappeared. And I did not understand what happened. I truly did not. Our son Steve finally gets his feet and he said, "Where's Dad?" And I said, "He's gone. He was right there." And I was that kind of voice. So Stephen was going to solve the problem. He walked over there, and none of us, because the water is now 3 to 4 feet deep, we don't remember the hole. I just saw Dean disappear, but I still don't remember the hole. So Steve goes over there and is reaching under the water trying to find a limb to grab, anything. And I'm looking at the top of Steve's head. And at one point, the water ebbed enough that Stephen looked up at me and said, "Mom, if you don't help me, I'm going to die."
So Stephen was caught at some point in it too. So I was saying, Stephen at some point was caught in it too, and the same faith could have been his faith. Whoa. Okay.
Which I didn't, I was just watching. I didn't understand. I reached down. He grabbed my wrist. I grabbed his wrist. I stood up. And I found that he could get himself out the rest of the way. At home. And he said, "Yeah, he could have, Mom, because I was going." So now we know he's gone down the toll, and we start screaming for him. And we never hear him. Now, in fairness, I'm not sure we stopped screaming very much to listen.
Oh,
We were pretty panicked, I sent Steve to get the couple that had moved back to the other tide pool. I knew they still had a phone. I need to call 911. My phone was around Stephen's neck in a waterproof thing, and it was sucked off him when he was getting sucked down.
Wow.
So my phone's gone. The other people call 911 for us, and the woman comes back and goes, "Well, maybe he went out in the ocean," and we're looking, and we see Dean's hat.
So there was another couple that was nearby, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
They had been in this hole, this not in the hole, in this tide pool before we went in.
In the very same tide pool.
Yes, in this tide pool. But it was all calm the whole time they were there.
And so
at that point,
so it wasn't really until Dean and Stephen, you guys entered that tide pool that things began to shift. Things began to shift.
We were there 10 minutes, and then that happened.
Right.
And so you talk about a moment.
Well,
This first moment, that crazy moment.
Well, let me ask you this.
I kept waiting for things to calm down.
It is a crazy moment. And listening to you, I mean, you said something very profound in terms of not taking the time to listen at that point of panic. And again, that's one of those, I mean, like I said, when you talk about make moments matter, you're not even thinking of that at that time. You know, that's the farthest thing from your mind because of the reaction, the response to almost here today, going tomorrow. And how do you explain this? And so, as you are, both you and Stephen are wrestling with all of those emotions and also having to respond to another couple who was right there at the time prior to. At this time, Dean, I'm just curious. Here it is, you have been sucked into this hole. And as you describe, you end up in what is probably, for all of those persons who are claustrophobic, you can relate. This enclosure that's like a closet. It's not the most comfortable space because it's jagged rock, right? You are contending with ebb and flow of tide, yeah? And I'm curious in terms of as you are there, here it is, you find yourself in this enclosure, in this cavern, in this darkness, and reading the book, I mean, it's pitch black darkness. And as I was reading it, I'm like, a whole lot of things are going through my mind. I'm saying, wow, what would I do? What would be my thoughts? And so I was curious, your thoughts. Here it is. This one moment you see Rose, next thing, gone. Stephen, see him, gone. And here you are on this ledge, awareness, having some awareness of where you are standing, and unawareness. How are you processing at this time? What were some of the immediate thoughts in terms of, because I'm thinking, wow, I'm in here, it's darkness, I'm trying to touch and feel what's around me. My immediate thoughts were, man, I want to get out of this. Where were you in this thought process of entering, then getting an awareness of where you are and not knowing where you are and thinking of what to do next to get out?
Yeah. So you know, kind of immediately, my first thought was, okay, I got to think about an escape route, right? I got to figure that out. There was one spot that I could see a little bit of light on occasionally above me, but that would quickly fill with water. So I looked at that and I go, well, maybe I could climb up there, but no, that thing keeps closing off, so that's probably not a way to get out. So immediately I was thinking about escape. After calling out to Rose and Stephen and not getting a response for a while, I knew that I was on my own. I couldn't see or figure out a way to get out, and So I've done a lot of reading about this. I did a lot of reading for a person's book, and there's actually something called negative panic, and that's where you just don't panic. And I can't say why I didn't panic, because panic would have been I would have jumped in the water and tried to escape, and I would die. I would have died for sure. There's just no doubt, because there was no the way I got out, which we'll talk about later. I could have never navigated because I couldn't have seen it, and I couldn't have made it work. So for some reason, I knew to not jump in the water, and I don't really know why. But then your mind becomes very, very, very focused, and so what I became focused on was really three things. It was number one was I can't believe I'm going to die here today, because I didn't have any way of getting out. Number two was I got to be ready for the next wave, because when that wave comes, it's going to slam me against this rock, and it's going to be cutting my body, and it's going to hit my head on the ceiling, and I'm going to be swallowing salt water if I'm not ready for it. So I tried to make sure that I was ready for that. And then kind of the third thought I had was, I can't believe my wife and my son saw me die, but I don't know what happened to them. So I don't know if they've met a similar fate or what. I mean, I have no idea. So I really kept kind of focusing and rolling through those three thoughts. Okay. When I'm jumping in, another wave's coming, get ready. And I feel so badly that this is what's happened to our vacation. And your mind just really, really becomes very focused. I don't think I'm claustrophobic normally. I don't know, but that becomes something. And because a lot of people have asked me about that, I'm like, your mind doesn't take you there. So people have asked, well, were you scared there might be sharks or fish or something in the water? Again, the situation's already so bad that, at least in my case, there was no more bad thoughts were coming in, because it couldn't get any worse. I was going to die here, right? I mean, it becomes, whether I die because I drown or I get eaten by a shark, doesn't matter. I'm going to die.
Right.
And so all those extraneous thoughts really kind of disappeared.
Wow.
And I became very, very focused.
And that's what fascinated me, about the story, because I'm thinking, and maybe television plays a role in some of this thinking, and also probably being an island man, I'm thinking, sharks, I'm in a dark hole. I'm thinking a whole host of things. Haven't had the experience of being in a dark cave, but knowing my way out of it, with a group of us. So we knew how to navigate the area growing up. So we knew about it. But this was different. And I was very intrigued in terms of, well, you're not panicking. You're processing. As I'm reading the story, I said, okay, he's processing. And I'm saying, And again, it's the story that, well, what would you do? That's all it had me doing in the book. Well, what would you do? What would you have done? What would you do? And you just communicated something that is either you're going to panic, the negative panic you talked about, or you gather yourself in such a way that you come to the realization that, one, I'm still here. I am still here. And as I'm still here, this is the other part of the story with you in the cave, because I was curious in wanting to find out what was, in terms of the frequency of the rush of waves coming in, I was curious as to how did you decode the pattern of the waves to understand, okay, this is coming in so many times, I got to get ready for it, as opposed to not being ready and it's hitting you. Was there at any point after a while where you gathered yourself? Because in reading the story, I got a sense that very quickly you had to come to grips and gather yourself about where you are and where you're not. But at the same time, there's a readiness for, well, in this cavern, the water drops, and then there's a rush. And it's the rush that I have to get ready for. What was your preparedness for each rush? That's what I'm curious about.
Yeah, and I want to, I want to make it clear. I'm not trained in any way. I am not a scuba diver. I have no training in any of this. So this isn't like, oh well, I've been practicing this all my life. I'm not a Navy SEAL or anything like that. It's interesting. I want to, because there's kind of 2 points you made. Is that the way I characterize it is the situation was totally hopeless. Nobody knew I was there. I'm going to die. But for whatever reason, there's something inside of you, right, that just says, but there's still hope. Until I'm no longer breathing, there's still hope. Again, it's just, I guess that's one of the wonderful ways your mind works, is it gives you hope when there is no hope. There shouldn't have been any hope. And so, I think that was probably how I was focused. Because I wasn't focused on, although I kept playing it up and up in my mind, my focus was more on how do I kind of get the feel of these waves? How do I prepare myself? I'm not going to be able, I can't time it. I don't have a watch. I can't concentrate enough to go, oh, it's every 7 seconds or something like that. I just need to be, as kind of you were saying, feel, okay, the water level's going down. That means pretty soon the water level's going to start coming up again. As you start to feel that, close your mouth if you can and be ready, because you're going to get banged against these rocks. And so there wasn't any I really got into a rhythm of it, because I can remember a lot of times where it would hit me and I'd swallow water, but it was just because I had so little to think about, and I wasn't thinking about all the bad parts, that I think it helped me focus on, okay, be ready.
Hope.
Yeah.
On the flip side, Rose, hope on your side is looking a little different.
Yeah. It was a really hard thing to give up hope, which I did. After, I estimate 10 minutes of hollering for him and hoping, I decided he's been underwater for this long. He's dead.
Yeah. Which would be the most logical thing that most of us would think about.
Yeah. My honest to God first thought was I prayed that he hit his head, so that he didn't know he was dying. He wouldn't be scared. And then I thought about our walk that morning, because I was trying to think, did we leave anything undone? We've been married at that point almost 40 years. And it's been a good run. And during our walk, I just thought to myself, you know what? No, we didn't leave anything undone. He knows how much I love him. Right. I know he loved me.
Right.
So I felt that gave me the strength to say, okay, we got to get off these rocks. It's not safe here. We got to go back, because I could feel my body giving into trembling and a little bit of shock.
Right.
And I knew you had to climb over a lot of rocks to get back to the beach, and I just knew I wasn't going to be able to do it under my own power pretty soon. So I needed to start doing that. But yeah, I gave up that hope and made it back to the beach.
You
And I did not understand, even though I knew I helped my son out of that hole, I did not understand that I saved him. I didn't understand how bad off he was until months later when he was explaining it to his dad for the book. I didn't know that was that big a deal. And he just went into, I gotta take care of mom. I gotta take care of mom. And not long after we got back to the beach, 3 Jeeps pulled in with a tour group.
all right.
And these people are all going over to lounge in the idyllic tide pools.
The very tide pool
And I
where,
said out loud
yeah.
to my son and to the woman, because her husband was on 911. I said, they're not allowed over there. No. And her name is Amy Jarvis, and she went and told the tour guides, hey, this just happened. There's a dead man. We don't know where he is. This just happened. That's his family. So Carl Frederick came over to me and said, please tell me exactly what happened.
And Carl's one of the tour operators of the Jeeps, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And I told him, and I realized I'm the only real witness because Stephen was being thrashed around too. So I explained it to him. And he says, okay, I'll find him. And I'm like, by this time, he's gone 35 minutes.
And his statement was that he will find him.
Yes.
Wow.
He says he's going to go find Dean. And I'm like, Carl, he's dead.
Wow.
You know, what do you... Anyway, he runs to where this happened with his other tour guide. And he laid down in such a way, like, you know how, well, okay, the Bermuda folks are not going to know ice, right? But if a pond is frozen and you're afraid the ice might be thin, what you do is lay out on it instead of walking on it.
Yeah.
So it spreads your weight out. Right?
Yeah.
Well, he kind of did that over the rocks so that he could get his face as close to that hole. So when the water ebbed and there was an actual air pocket, he yelled in for Dean. We didn't do that. We just yelled, right?
You were upright yelling into, he was down in it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And the second time he yelled, Dean yelled back.
Wow. Wow. I guess our equivalent is, I mean, you gave the example of the ice to pond. I think I was telling Dean, probably one of our equivalents is when it's a riptide. You know, those of us, we're taught young age that if you're caught in a riptide, you don't struggle against it. You go lateral to pull yourself out of it, you know. And it sounds easy. It sounds easy. And maybe for those of us, I guess it's the equivalent of Carl getting down, and it is knowing what to do, when to do it, and just calling out. I'm sure he's calling out in the rhythms of the waves coming in and out too, because those are things that you learn and you know about island life,
Right.
and the patterns and the currents, all of those things. Wow.
Right. So at this point, Carl's his guide comes running back to the beach and says he's alive. We're talking to him.
Wow.
And I'm torn because, oh my God, he's alive. And then I'm like, oh my God, he's alive. And I walked away. Oh my God, he's alive. How scared is he? The emotional roller coaster was incredible.
And hope. I'm just thinking, Rose, what you went through. I mean, you went from hope to hopelessness and then hope again.
Yes.
And the reality that, nah, he is alive. He's alive. And Carl's letting you know this.
I don't want to hope because I don't know how they're going to get him.
Right.
I don't know. Right. So it was, and I have no idea what it felt like when he heard the voice.
Well,
so let's go back
let's go to that, because I'm curious, Dean, in terms of, here it is, you hear this voice. And, you know, hope, you talk about hope, you hear this voice, you're in this dark hole. And that's the sign of life above that tells you that, I may get out of this, or I'm going to get out of this. When you heard that voice, can you, and I hate to say this because you tell the story, you told the story, you've written the book, so it's evident that you're reliving this experience multiple times already, right? But let us know in terms of just immediately, I mean, the moment that you heard this voice, can you picture your whole state of being the moment you heard that voice?
It's tough. I'm sure, because at this point in time I'd been in the cave about 40 minutes. We decided, so I was in really, really, really bad shape, physically and mentally. I can't remember 100% sure, but I'm sure I had to have some doubt. Did I really hear something, or am I making it up? Right? I mean, your brain is trying to help you out. So I know I called out to him. I said, "Help me! I'm down here." And then he spoke to me again. And then once I heard the voice the second time, if you will, then I knew there was somebody there. And then it was, "Don't leave me." Help me get out of here quickly. It was that. And I want to go back one thing on Carl.
Sure.
It's important for everybody that is out there is that Carl's not a trained rescue volunteer. He's not trained in any way to save lives and anything. He's paid to bring people down to the tide pools and give them a good time. That's his job. And he arrives on scene. There's a dead man. Leaves the people he's working with. They're paid to come down there. Says, "I'm going to go find the dead man for you." What kind of person does that? An ordinary person. All of us can do that, right? But he chose to do it. And we talked. I know moments is something we talked about, right? That moment mattered because Carl and Devron know the tide pools. They know everything about it. If it had been somebody else that came down, it could have been you. Let's just say you don't know.
What I'm thinking, if you've said to me, "There's a dead man there," right? I'm thinking, okay, then what can I do other than wait until help comes to get the dead man? You know what I mean? As opposed to a cow who says, "Nope, we're gonna."
He was gonna be the help.
Yeah, and even him responding to it was hope. Man, you talk about hope in itself. It's not even an acknowledgement that you were dead, because he says, I will find him. I mean, there was a surety in his statement.
Yeah.
I'm going to find him. And what's so interesting in this here, because, in the book you talk about that in terms of one of the other thoughts. Here it is. Hope is alive. There are persons now who are aware that you are alive. And now there's this escape or rescue moment. And
Right.
that moment in itself is another level of hope.
Yeah.
That's another level of hope, because you're letting them know, well, I'm in this cavern, and Carl and the other tour guide know that's where you are, but they too do not have a clear picture of what that cavern looks like. It's not like they've been down there, but they
Right.
do know and have a sense of the tidal pools and caverns. And so you make it very clear, I don't know where I am. I'm standing on a ledge. You're on a ledge. It's a sharp ledge. It's rocky. You're being thrown all about. You're letting them know your unawareness of the depths. But rescue is in effect.
Yeah.
Rescue is in effect. And Rose, you're on the other side now as rescue is in effect. Now, the rescue has some interesting storylines to it, because when you talk about make moments matter too, that in itself has a lot of moments.
Yeah.
Because one of your rescuers, had he not, for this day, done the one thing that he hadn't done for some time, as someone, in my understanding was, he usually has certain types of gear in his vehicle, in his Jeep, and normally he has it's not in there. But on this day, he decided, oh, let me put everything in there. I think I'm capturing it correctly.
Yes.
One of the most important tools, of course, is the rope. Yeah? And so give us some of the story behind that, because that was interesting in terms of the fact that, yeah, here it is.
Ben Torkelson.
Yeah. Right.
He is a volunteer rescuer, a retired Navy chaplain.
Yeah.
And he actually gets 3 moments, right? One, that morning, he's having his breakfast with his brother who's visiting from Washington State. And they had plans to do something else that day. And they said, you know what, let's go to the tide pools instead. So when he got the rescue call, he was already halfway there to this remote area. So he arrived 25 minutes to a half hour before every other rescuer.
Wow.
If Dean had been in there 25 more minutes, I don't know. Maybe he can still get rescued, but maybe he's not in as good a shape. I don't know. Number 2, they're throwing their stuff in the car to go to the tide pools, and he noticed his rescue rope there in the closet. Hadn't been in his car for a year, and decided to toss it in.
For no reason, because he didn't know anything happened, right? This
Yeah,
time. He always gathers gear in case he gets called to a rescue of some sort.
So tosses it in, and without that rope, there is no way this man is sitting next to me right now, because nobody could have gone in after him. And then the third one is as in their oxygen tanks. Well, an ambulance came later, and they had oxygen, but their ambulance can't get down to the tide pools. There's no road, and the ambulance is not an off-road vehicle. So the 2 guys from the ambulance had to decide what to take with them, and they did not take the oxygen. So when he is out of that hole and on those rocks, that oxygen that Ben brought meant he was doing way better by the time he got to the hospital than he otherwise would have been. So Ben gets 3 things that he did. The oxygen kind of makes sense, but the other 2, for no reason whatsoever, other than if you believe in divine intervention, this thought was in his head, put there by someone above, and they went, oh yeah, okay. That rope was put right in front of his eyes. Oh yeah, okay, I'll put that in. And again, without those things, there's just no way this man is alive.
And so by the time he's there, and of course you have the rope, obviously everyone seeing that, there's this rescue mission now. The tools,
oh, yeah.
Everyone has the tools now. But even in reading the book, I'm saying, okay, and I'm reading and say, okay, yeah, I got the right tools now. They got the right tools. But even having the right tools, sometimes you still got to navigate Mother Nature and the wrath of the ocean. Right? And just reading that, I'm like, okay. I'm talking back to the book because I'm saying rescue mission. Okay, just you're going to get the rope to him. You're going to lower the rope down. It's not that easy because you're dealing with moving body of water. How you know it's going to reach Dean where he is? I'm thinking as I'm reading it, I think it was a few times in the book you talked about they lowered the rope or threw the rope in there, but it hadn't reached you. You were reaching around or something. How does that go?
No, yeah, I mean, that's the other piece of right. You're right. So they're going to throw this rope down in the ocean and hope it floats.
Hope it floats.
They don't know where they are.
Yeah.
They don't know where I am, I'm sorry, right? And I don't know where they are relatively. Are they to my left? Are they to my right? Behind me, in front of me? I don't know, right? I can just hear a voice. And so they say, again, you can picture it. This is the way I describe it is, it's this pitch black place. I can barely breathe. I've been beaten up for now. It's almost an hour. And they say, we're going to throw a rope to you. Catch it. I don't know where it's coming from. So literally I did was I stuck both my arms out in front of my body, and the rope just came to me. I mean, I felt the rope against my arms.
And that's without leaving the ledge, by the way.
Yeah, I did not leave the ledge.
That's right.
Pull it right
yeah.
in. But then comes the hard part, right? Is because
exactly.
Now I've got to hold the rope, and they say, "Okay, jump in, and we'll pull you out."
Stop right there, because it's and I said, because I'm saying, and maybe it's television too. I'm saying, jump in, and I'm saying, how come they didn't say wrap the rope around your waist, something like that? And I said, jump in, because you had the rope.
Yep.
And I'm saying, well, they're telling him to jump in because you've held the rope. But I'm saying, why is it rescue? They're not saying to wrap at least the rope around your waist, recognizing we don't know how deep this is. We don't know how narrow or curvy it is. What if you're just holding it, another wave comes, and again, the rope is knocked from your hand because you've been thrown up against a wall or something. And then we're starting all again because hope now turns to hopelessness. But I was just, I was saying, what are you people doing? I'm talking back to the book. Well, what are you doing? what type of rescue people, you know? And you're right. These aren't professionals. They're not professionals. And so they're doing what the human spirit is calling them to do. All right?
Yep.
So here you are. You've grabbed this rope.
Yeah. And and so again, they're talking to me because again they don't know they know nothing and I know nothing. It's just they know I got to get me out of that hole. And we're talking back and forth. Carl again is crawling out through the hole, and you know they would listen for me to respond back. And you know, I will admit I was scared to jump in the water because I knew if I jumped in the water, that was it. Right, it's my only chance.
Yeah.
This is it. You know, as dumb as it sounds, standing on the ledge, I'm alive. Once I jump in that water, in 2 seconds I'm either gonna be dead or alive.
Right.
I mean, it was the final decision kind of thing. And this is another part, I say it in the book, and this is another part for me that's a really just kind of interesting, the way your mind protects you is, I don't remember jumping in the water. I don't remember them pulling me in the water. All I remember is when I surfaced out of the hole and could see the sky again. So your mind has a way of just saying, we're going to block out this horrible trauma. I'm not going to know anything about it, and that'll probably work well for you. So what they told me is that, you know, because Carl kept calling out to me, and all of a sudden they didn't hear me anymore.
Mm-hmm.
They just started pulling on the rope as hard as they could, as fast as they could. And I was just holding on to the rope with my bare hands. I had no strength. Again, you know, that's how your body works, is I had enough strength to get pulled out of there, and there's just no way I could do that.
And I was reading something. This is something that was done by Robert Scherer. And Robert Scherer, you know, he's a physics professor. I forget what university, but you know, part of his fascination is things of the black hole. And your experience, you know, something that he wrote is related to something, you know, the experiences that he talked about, where it talks about what would a small black hole do to the human body. And I thought of you and I said, wow, look what that small black hole did to your body, but yet the human spirit, because by that time you were cut up, you were bleeding from many places. Yeah. You're pulled to the surface. You're seeing daylight for the first time. Yeah. And one of the things that he talks about is what happens to the mind, the brain during that period. And I know, Rose, with the work that you do, that in itself is something fascinating. But I was saying, again, reading what Robert Scherer was talking about in terms of what the human body and the mind goes through in those dark spaces. For you still, there was still this, and I read it somewhere in terms of that thing of hope again. They were talking about true active hope. That was the term. And in it talks about realizing your pronouncements in life. That, you know, some people have multiple pronouncements in life. Those defining moments in their life where there's something that registers, that they experience, that alters their state of consciousness and sense of worth and value, brings value, all of that. And here it is, you go through multiple periods of that. And when you talk about making moments matter, I mean, there's only every moment that you're looking to make matter, or every moment you're looking to matter for you, is life or death situation still. Even at the point of you've been rescued, you've been pulled up after an hour, correct?
Yep.
After an hour, that probably felt like a day. I'm thinking, and hearing this experience, the human spirit, because your experience speaks to such pronouncements that, I mean, you talk about, yes, those people who rescued are heroes of yours, certainly. But you're still contending with life or death situations because you've been rescued, but still your body is still in a period of, in a state of shock, I would think, correct?
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
so here it is. Let us give us an idea of that experience, because you've been rescued, but still not rescued. I mean, it's not like you were pulled up and swept away and on the way to recovery or whatever, because there's a long waiting period.
Right. Yeah.
Now, the Coast Guard has a role to play in this waiting period at this time. So what most of us would be anticipating, finally, the Coast Guard. But even the Coast Guard couldn't rescue immediately, because Mother Nature has its own plans. And everyone still must be patient and wait for Mother Nature. So during that period, here it is, you are, quote unquote, say on land, but not dry land, but you're on land.
Nope.
But Coast Guard, what was the challenges of their role in support of your rescuers?
Yeah. So yes, they got me out of the hole, and we're now sitting on top of the volcanic rock, which is very sharp rock. It's not comfortable. But there is no trained medical professional up there. There's now 6 rescuers. So they don't know that I'm hurt. They don't know if I have broken bones. They don't know if I have a spinal injury, a head injury, internal injuries. And so they could not safely get me off of the rocks and get me to shore, which was maybe 200 or 300 meters away, which was the right decision to make. And so they needed to call in the Coast Guard to have a helicopter come. They considered having a boat come in, but the waves were too dangerous for the boat. So there was a boat that was close by, a Coast Guard boat, but that couldn't work. So they had to call and talk with the Coast Guard in Aguadilla, Puerto Rico. And luckily, we were able to get a rescue helicopter to come, but it's more than an hour away. So for the next hour plus, because the Coast Guard has to get the crew together, get their mission ready, etc. The 6 rescuers and myself were up on those rocks, and the waves keep crashing over the water. And I can remember times when the waves were strong enough that I was laying on a tarp by now. It would pick me up off the tarp, and they were all like laying their bodies on top of mine so I wouldn't float away. And 2 of the rescuers were relaying back to the shore to get towels or shirts to try to keep me warm because I was hypothermic. So we were in a dangerous situation for a long time up on those rocks. And then the helicopter comes, and they have to evaluate the situation. There was a cliff on the shoreline. It was relatively close to where we were, and the way the winds were blowing around that, there was danger for that helicopter to get too close to that cliff and crash into it. So they took a long time to be safe in trying to make sure that they saved me. And then, of course, because as you said, the way Mother Nature works, a rainstorm came in. So just as we're getting close to the rescue part, it starts raining and gets a little windier. And they're having to, again, the helicopter's having to try to maneuver with this new new thing of it's windier, it's raining, and we're trying to pull this person up on what's called a Stokes basket safely without running into this cliff. And so there's a lot of complications that they're having to deal with. So we were up on those rocks for, I estimate, about 3 hours before I was pulled out and taken up into the rescue helicopter so I could get to the hospital.
Well,
so the helicopter, the Coast Guard, there's a lot in the story about them. The one thing that is really, to me, the most interesting thing is there's a 4-person crew in the helicopter. And the way it works is that at various times during the mission, each individual has a time where they're the one in charge. And the pilot is the number one guy, but there's times he's not allowed to act until somebody else says, this is now safe.
Operating from position of strength.
Yep. And these 4 gentlemen, who all happen to be men, worked on a mission together. And here it's this very complicated, very long, very hard mission, and they pull it off perfectly.
Wow.
Because they all knew what to do, and they all knew they needed to trust each other, which is a pretty amazing thing.
Well, by this time, I'm thinking, Rose, you're on that helicopter ride also, aren't you?
I am not on the helicopter.
You're not on the helicopter ride?
No. We've been on the beach during these 3.5 hours, right? When they kept telling us that we need more towels to keep him warm, I was like, can I go out and lay on him? Isn't that what they show in movies and books? Just here has my body warmth. And they're like, no, you're not going out there. Okay. So when the helicopter finally arrived, we're like, thank God. And then it keeps doing another pass and another pass because they don't just swoop in and get them. They've got to do it right. They got to make sure they're safe. They've got to send down a guy. Oh my gosh, my son and I were ready to explode. Please just get him off the rock. And so we just had to watch from afar.
At this time, you don't know much about my condition. What do you?
What I know about his condition, I know that his pulse ox was measured at like 68 or some ridiculous number. That and this is from the people from the ambulance who are with radio to them. They said, we're only going out there if he starts coding. Otherwise, they don't need us out there. He said, now, a pulse ox that low means he's dead. It should be at least like 93. But he's coherent and talking. So we're just assuming that the reason that pulse ox is that low is because he's hypothermic and his finger is cold. And those little pulse ox monitors don't measure well on a finger when you're cold. So we're going with the fact that he's coherent and talking. So, okay. And they talked to us about dry drowning. I know he's out of the hole, but he can still drown. It's, are his lungs filled with water?
Which is what happened to you. I mean, you speak about having the intake of so much salt water.
Yes.
And so they spoke about dry drowning.
Yes. That after you're out, if your lungs you can't breathe, you can still drown. So, okay, we've been told that. We don't know if he has any broken bones. We don't know anything about anything else. We just know he's talking. Okay, that's what we know. And we know he's alive.
Well, the fact that you're talking is enough evidence to say, and I guess, Rose, you would know more so than anyone else. If he's talking, that's a lot of life still in him.
Oh, yeah.
But at this time, because I know we're reaching the closure of your, well, I'm not saying the closure of your experience, but you're reaching the hospital. And I know the hospital in St. Croix to you is a very important part of the story, of your story. And actually, the book is actually somewhat dedicated to the hospital. And part proceeds of the book goes to the hospital. And let me just say, listening audience, www.belvoirpress.com. Yeah? Did I get that correct?
Yep. BELVOIRPRESS.com.
I encourage everyone to go to it, and you can
buy the book there.
You can buy the book there. You can contribute to this here, but with it, like I said, making moments matter. We're going to, that's going to be part of the closure, because the hospital is important in this story, and just in these moments that we have left, the 15 minutes that we have left, convey to us the importance of the hospital to your recovery, and as an individual and as a family.
So, Dean was not coherent, really. He had between the salt water he swallowed, the salt water he inhaled, and the salt water that went through cuts, his saline level was so outrageously high that any doctor we've talked to have said they've never heard of a number like that. So, and that had to be dealt with delicately. Now, the hospital in St. Croix is condemned at this time from 2 hurricanes that I'm sure you guys had your share of.
Oh, we can relate.
2018 or 17?
17, yeah, we can relate.
So, that hospital sustained enough water damage that the whole 3rd floor is condemned, and that they're using the 2nd floor and the 1st floor, and they're keeping the temperature at 63 degrees because they're trying to keep the mold from growing down. So we were freezing, but despite the fact that they have all these challenges, the personnel knew what to do. The personnel handled everything as they needed to. And again, we could not have had better care. And that hospital, they have funds from FEMA, which is U.S. government, to build anew, but St. Croix is like 40% poverty. So they don't have a revenue stream to help maintain what they build. And so that's where money from this book goes, is to that foundation that they founded to try to create a better situation going forward. Because St. Croix is the farthest east island out there. It's for the U.S. For the U.S.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if to get to Puerto Rico, that's a flight. That can't be where you need to go to the hospital. They need to have a hospital out there. So, again, we couldn't have had better care. There was at that time a lot of traveling nurses and doctors because of the pandemic still.
Right.
And so, boy, Dean's ER doc couldn't have had more the right person. And I'm going to let him talk about her. The nurses that were native to the island were spectacular, award-winning, and the nurses that were visiting, 2 of them have decided to stay on the island.
Okay.
They'd rather stay here than go back. So they're just nurses that work there now. There are so they just took really good care of this man.
For how long? For how long were you in the hospital for your care?
2.5 days.
Okay.
Which was nobody would have predicted I got out that fast. But I ended up not having any broken bones. I didn't have a concussion.
Wow.
I didn't have any brain damage. I was cut up everywhere. I looked like I was in a motorcycle accident. But yeah, because of the care I got out much faster than anybody would have predicted, which was great. And so that's why, the hospital, we're donating money, and then, like we say, anything we make from the book, we're going to donate also on that. But I think the other piece of it is that, and there's a whole bunch of moments with the hospital people that we're not even going to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the point that, kind of the through line that you and I talked about is, okay, I've almost died. I've been rescued. I've recovered. Now it's, what am I supposed to do about it?
Yeah.
What did Rose and I supposed to do about it, right? Obviously we're grateful. It becomes it's interesting because it becomes a little bit of a burden, right? Because most people will say something like your guardian angel was watching over you, or your time is not done here, or whatever, which is kind of putting a pressure on you, right? Okay, I must have something special to do. And what Rose and I really have settled on is this whole idea of making moments matter, which is the idea that we all have all kinds of moments, which you kind of started the show off on, where you're just normal, everyday moments. I'm saying hi to you, I'm saying bye to you, maybe you see a friend at a coffee shop or out shopping or whatever. What do you do about those moments?
Yeah.
And what can you do to notice a few more of them and make them more conscious, deliberative actions? So we talked about this before the show. One of the ones that Rose and I came up with, which is a really simple, easy one, and she said we've been married now more than 40 years, is we have a pledge to each other that every day we're going to do a 10-second hug. And during that hug, there's no thinking about other things, there's no talking, there's nothing. It's just a hug. You feel the other person's breath, you feel the other person's presence. That's a moment that we're taking every day. It doesn't happen at the same time. It happens all kind of different times every day. But just a way to make a moment matter with somebody you care about.
Mm-hmm.
And again, everybody listening can do that. And if you don't have somebody else, you can do it with a pet, right? I mean, there's just all kinds of things you can do. But we're really trying to just, think about how can we be grateful for just all the moments we have and the things that maybe we haven't noticed in the past that, we can make a difference with this. It doesn't have to be anything spectacular, but a kind word.
Mm-hmm.
Noticing somebody that's in distress.
Yeah.
I think
Dean got out of that hospital and was so cut up. I was putting salve on him, doing that kind of stuff. But I couldn't hug him. I couldn't hug him when I showed up at the hospital. I put one hand on him in the one place I could find that wasn't scratched up. When he, 3 weeks later, said to me, "My skin now kind of feels normal," I turned around and said, "Does this mean I can hug you?" And I think that was the first time he realized we haven't hugged.
wow.
Because I noticed, my God, I can't even hug this man. And that's where this whole thing grew out of. It's like, no, we're not going to miss that opportunity anymore.
I appreciate that aspect of the story and what came out of it. And, if you go to the website, you lay out a journal. And it was one of the video clips I think you did, Dean. I think both of you, where you were talking and giving reference to make moments matter and how we can all use it, and building a movement of it, actually. And I'll say this here. The moment I saw that, I said, okay, on all fronts, you're going to adopt this. And we're going to apply this because we want to make moments matter. And your hug piece, I said, okay, Lou, you're going out on a limb because I'm the least affectionate one in the family. Everyone, you leave the house, give me a kiss, give me a hug. And, I'm like, look, I see you later. That type of thing. And so the moment I saw that as a part of it, I said, okay, I understand. Here it is, I'm 68. And now I'm getting some clarity of why my mom, before you leave, give me a kiss. Or sisters, give me a kiss. And I'm like, look, how many kisses I got to give you in a day? That type of thing. And your story and what came out of this in terms of what could you do and what is being done is so powerful. And I know, Dean, you and I were sharing and having conversations about this. I was giving you some relevance in terms of making moments matter in the Bermuda context of some things that we are observing and experiencing. I think I gave you examples of, I think we're on record, we're on pace to break road fatality record already. I mean, we're only 6 months into the year, and we're on pace. I think the record is 12 or 13 in a year, but the way we're going to surpass that. Hopefully not with make moments matter, because we're going to make this part of the mantra on all fronts, to get us in and understanding, all of us in these times that we're in, that the person whom you're looking at, there's no guarantee that he or she is here today, here tomorrow, here in the next moment. And reflectively, it's like you said, Dean, that moment to be kind, that moment to just reach out to someone that you haven't heard of. You've been thinking of the person. Well, I'll get to him later. And then later, it's too late. Later is too late.
Yeah.
Later is too late.
It could be that you're the one. We've all done it, right? Is you're either mad at somebody on the road, right? They're driving too fast or too slow or too crazy. And we get all hung up in that. And again, you can take that moment and go, I'm just going to back away. I'm not going to get angry.
And I'm smiling about that because I was given a story this morning where we're on a narrow road. The vehicles that are coming toward this other person, it's just too many. They can't go back. But the person that they're moving toward, she could go back. But she's in the mood of not going back. I'm not moving. And out of that, some rage, right? And I'm listening to this here, and I'm saying, damn, this doesn't make sense. Even one of the persons who was about 4 cars back, that person just decided to maneuver in the narrow space and turn around and go back another way. But the person who was right in front of the woman, he's adamant, I'm not moving. And so the rest of us are moving because these two in a tug of war. And so finally, she decides, let me just back up. But she reverses into the gate where she needed to go, but then she's becoming belligerent. And of course, it's triggering the person who's in front of her. And like the rest of us are saying, okay, hey, get past this, people. We all want to go past this here right now, you know. The two of you take it in the parking lot or wherever. But that moment, you know, is those moments, like you say, you know, just to pause, just to stop.
Yep.
Just to reflect. And do you see yourself in that moment? Which you is showing up in that moment? Yeah? Mm-hmm. Which you? Because there are all types of us.
Right.
Oh, yeah, there are.
Which, yep. Do you know which one of you is going to show up in that moment? Right. And your story in that moment, Dean and Rose, you've on vacation, and you go down to the tidal pool, and the wonder of the tidal pool, which is therefore pulls you into it literally, alters your entire life spectrum in 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours. But what it has you doing is exactly that in that moment. You're reflecting, you're looking. And like you said, the multiplicity of thoughts. But you said something in terms of about negativity. And hope was still a part of your realization. You know? And if anything, that's what we, at this time, it's so important that we carry that hope. And if I may, because, and I'll just share, because this jumped out at me, one of the many things that jumped out at me with what you wrote in terms of the journal. Like, I'll be speaking more to this as we build our moments to remind. But you talk about 6 types of moments. And you talk about, and if I may, you say moments are the everyday thoughts and events you experience. Sometimes it helps us to be a little more aware if we can organize events. We categorize moments into 6 types. Thoughts. Thoughts are ideas, reminders, feelings that come to you. Things that pop up into your head. An example. I should reach out to Lou. A thought crosses your mind about a friend you've not noticed or checked in on for a while. Then there's the type of moment where there are decisions, choices, or conclusions. Should I do this or not? Then there are opportunities, openings, or prospects that often come in. The relationships with others or exchanges with others. Here comes the waiter, the waitress, the bartender. Do you just look at them as a waitress, waiter, or bartender? Or do you treat them as a person that they are, with value? These observations, people, places, things that you notice or perceive. Do you notice the people around you who maybe they're not having a good day? And their not so good day doesn't mean for you a bad day, because they're not responding to you the way that you normally want to be received or responds. that's the power of your story. Make moments matter. And I just want to say, Dean and Rose, the story that you have taken the time, the book that you have written out of this experience is one of those stories that changes people's lives. That's how I look at this story. It changes people's lives. And as I looked at it also, it pushed me to see other possibilities of the world that we live in, the universe we live in. Like I said, my nerdy mind of, well, I've always, as an island person, felt that the ocean is much more mysterious than outer space. But I've always been intrigued by the black hole, the science of it. And your story made me dig deeper into the black hole of the ocean. That scientists say there are greater mysteries there still unknown. And your story, Dean, at least represents a story that you are a survivor. I wouldn't say use the word that you conquered, but I would definitely say you survived. And you survived with all the hope that you had in that cavern, that dark cavern, with the forces of Mother Nature. And I just want to say that I really appreciate the time that you have given us here in Bermuda tonight. I wanted to do something different, and I trust that your story makes a difference in the lives of people who've exercised some of the patience just to listen tonight, because I haven't taken any calls. I just sometimes like to have a story told, and this is one that we leave and want people to reflect. So I would say this isn't the last word between us, and as we know, there aren't any guarantees, but I'm calling it forward that it's not going to be the last moment. It's not going to be the last word. We all got more work to do. But close out for us. And
no, I you said a lot of beautiful words, and the way to think about it is that the conversation we just had is a moment, and everybody got to hear it and hear it in their own ways. And if you just take a little time to pause and think about, what, I don't want anybody to have to go into a black cave and have the experience that we had. So you get the virtue of we can tell you what our story was that got us there, but now you're on the other side of it, where you can say, I have a lot of moments, I have a lot of people in my life, I have a chance. Everybody has a spirit inside of them that they can make life better for others and for themselves. So hopefully hearing this and having that been brought to your attention tonight will help you think about, what can I do tomorrow morning to make the day a little better for myself and for others.
Beautiful.
I just want to say thank you so very much for welcoming us to tell this. It's our way of making our lemonade. Finding a way to help people say, I can, if any part of this story resonates, contemplate that and do something positive for yourself and the person sitting next to you, or the person you run into tomorrow.
Well, we're going to ensure that we all make our moments matter, and how best to do it. And then, of course, how we treat each other, how we love each other, respect each other. And I'm sure on my next visit to Dayton Rose, I'll be getting my brain massage.
Great, and I'm just sitting here thinking that you're coming to dinner.
Hey, I look forward to it, and I tell you, that dinner is going to be lots of conversations about other things that I've been reading that I know that you're doing, and like I said, I will say this here. I'm gonna project it and say probably in September, Dean. We'll do a segment on your TED Talk, retirement, but I call it renewal. And I think it's so timely because it's a conversation that also, when you talk about moments that matter, that's a big one for many people these days. So mutual appreciation, and Lou's coming to dinner. So hey, I'm appreciative. I'm a fish guy. I'll have chicken now. I'm not a heavy meat type of guy, but hey,
Gotcha.
I just, other than that, I eat almost any other thing. Yeah, but I'm looking forward to it, and I'll just say, you guys, hey, mutual joy, hugs and love. Your story is a very significant and important story for all of us, and we're gonna learn some more, discuss some more. This isn't your last time on all fronts, I can tell you. All right?
Thank you, Lou.
All right. Be well, and look to see you soon.
Yeah.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. Bye-bye. Whew. Well, listening audience, I wanted to do something a little different today, and that was it. I've been wanting to do this story and share this moment for some time. And I find it somewhat timely, and
with AI,
I guess for the remainder of the show, I'm going to fit in, because what I'm going to fit in, of course, we've lost Sir John, and many of talk radio have been giving their tributes, and we know on the 24th, Sir John is laid to rest, but we all have a story. And so I thought that for the closure of tonight's show, I'll just play out a Bermuda Innovation Sprint conversation with Sir John. And, let it be one of those moments. I'm sure we all have a moment of Sir John. And I'll say this also. You heard it here on All Fronts first. I don't know if anyone else has said it. I believe that we should have a statue or statues of Sir John in different places in Hamilton, because there is no politician or statesman, let me put it that way, he's a statesman, that we can say in the true Bermudian sense as a politician statesman. You found Sir John everywhere in Hamilton and across Hamilton. And I just envisioned this statue of him, one extending his hand, hey boy, that type of conversation in the real Bermudian sense and his spirit. But hey, maybe in the not too distant future, because he is somewhat of an iconic, or was an iconic figure for Bermuda. And if you read the piece that he had in the papers, I mean, powerful. And I know the family extended their gratitude for all of the acknowledgments that came from many people based upon what he wrote. But let us listen and close out tonight's show with this segment from And by sojourn, listen up. Hold on. Oops. Okie doke.
This is me on day one.
No, that's not
my
it.
son made me switch from running
Not
to...
that one.
In 1914, Britain was
All
the bank
right.
of the world.
Hold on.
It sat at the center of a fight.
Hold on. Let me get it right. All right, here it is. There it is.
Well, first of all, let me say how honored I am to be here. You're going to talk about a lot of things I know very little about, because I come out of the coaxial cable, non-digital world, and all of you come out of the digital world, and so therefore there are two forces that are trying to merge and one take over the other. And it's going to take a while. And I'm here because I want to learn, but more importantly is I want to see how Bermuda can fit into what you want to do, because where you're going is where the world is going to go, whether it likes it or not. It's not an option. It would be no different than when the first telephone was invented in around 1880 or what. Message to Chicago, traveling at 770 miles an hour on a coaxial cable, and we thought that was fast and fascinating, considering they used to use horses to deliver messages. And today we're traveling around the world at 670 million miles an hour. So this is a big change, and people of my age, my ilk, are still being caught into doing things one way, when from 1974, when the coaxial cable was done away with or substituted for the fiber optic cable, which took messages at the speed of light. That's the big change. And so today when I come to you being very humble, because that's the speed that we all know we've got to catch up with. And as I listen to my radio when I'm driving my car, I came out of the era when the music and the songs were ballads and they were slow and everything else. And all I hear on the radio now is bumpity bum, bumpity bum, bumpity bum. Because already young people are doing what technology is doing, is speeding themselves up. And we consider it offensive because I want to slow down. So the only slow channel on my radio is the religious channel. So I'm getting an awful lot of religion just to try to stay normal. But that normality is really real. The real normality is what I'm hearing, the bumpity bumpity bump, because it's telling me think quicker, do things quicker, and try to make yourself more current. And so today I've come here humble to you to be made more current. Turn over to you.
This is why I love talking with Sir John. Okay, so recently, just a few days ago, you published a kind of a think piece that talked about some future potential ideas for Bermuda and how Bermuda can thrive in this faster bumpity bump world, right? So can you share with the group a little bit of those thoughts? Like, what are your thoughts about the future of this country?
Well, as all of you can see, particularly our visitors, we're sort of 22 square miles sitting on top of this little coral atoll out here that has always, though, because we're so unique north in the North Atlantic and isolated but between Europe. So we played a role in the Second World War, and we played a role in all the developments since the 1600s, or things that have happened between Europe and the Americas. And we were finally wired by coaxial cable to the United States until in the late 70s, early 80s, we went into the fiber optic cable and we were connected. And then came the reinsurance business, and there was a big, it sort of, we were gliding along with the captive insurance business, and then there was this big jump up to the demands put on our education system, our housing, and everything else that we had never experienced before. And we went from a population of about 60,000 up to 66,000, almost a snap of a finger. I think within a decade that happened. A demand for labor, and therefore we had to bring in more labor. And I think it had a psychological impact in the fact that it happened so fast, and it had all sorts of social and political and psychological implications, and people trying to adjust. But we adjusted. Fortunately, it happened very fast. And we embraced this industry, and this industry has become the hallmark of our development in being able to now welcome you here, because we have a good infrastructure in terms of telecommunication. We have a good source of power, and particularly for islands. Islands are very famous for having all sorts of power problems. We have an enormous source of human resources. And as the industry changed, the insurance and the reinsurance industry changes. And as the banking system changes, in the article that you just mentioned, I suggested that we adapt to the US dollar. That was not taken lightly, because the Bermuda dollar is only as good as we can change hands here. And in actual fact, if you have US dollars in your pocket, you can use those US dollars anyhow. So that's not a big quantum leap from one to the other, particularly if they're both on parity. But more importantly is, we're talking about tying Bermuda in with this limited population. There are 50,000 Bermudians and about 10,000 workforce. Tying Bermuda into the advanced world. So there are two worlds out there. There's a world that's still in the coaxial world, in the slow world, and then there's the fast world. But if you look at it, what's happening in wealth accumulation and opportunities, it's in the fast world. The slow world is drifting away very fast. So Bermuda's been gearing up for this for some time. And then people like Stan and his other colleagues came to Bermuda, and what they saw, they saw what they saw, but they didn't see what was underneath of this. And this was this great opportunity to take this Bermuda that has an international reputation in terms of approval ratings, history of meeting its commitments, history of being civil, a legislative system that is very balanced, because we have an appellant process to the British court itself. And we've had a number of people that have come to Bermuda, made their contribution, and had a big effect. And some of them have gone abroad and carried the flag of Bermuda, even though they might be working in Switzerland or in Ireland or in other jurisdictions. So we've got everything it takes to take this little small, almost like a cruise ship, and that's anchored somewhere, and turn it into the direction of any wind that blows. And your wind is now blowing in our direction. And you give us that opportunity to make headway, particularly when the reinsurance business is somewhat static. And manpower will be available from that. Manpower will be available in the article that I wrote. I talked about banking. And everybody thinks of banking as being the banking of yesterday. You go in and you want some money and you write a check and they count out the money and so forth. Those days are going to be behind us very fast. The day of anybody handling cash will be gone. The day of anybody even taking a credit card and handing it to somebody else will be gone. It will be technology and your relationship with a new evolving system. So the whole aspect of exchange And this is where fintech fits into it, because it takes us now to how we do business in Bermuda with the rest of the world. How we accommodate you and your new dimension of accommodation of global business, global transactions, safe transactions, fair transactions, has no prejudice. I don't have to go look at somebody and he looks at me and says, you're a particular color or you look like something, I don't like you. All that goes out the window. You think about it. We are now creating an era in which a person, as Martin Luther King says, you know, don't judge my children by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. You won't have to judge me by anything because you won't see me. But what you will see, though, is I either have it or I don't have it. And I think this is, particularly when you see what's going on in the world in terms of sectarianism, in terms of political, ideological conflicts, Bermuda offers an opportunity through you to be able to put all that aside. We're now entering a whole new era. It's not about you. It's about what the world needs. When you look at the conflict that's happening in Southeast Asia, Middle East, and in Europe, in terms of currency conditions and so forth, and resource conditions, for the first time we're beginning to now see what Alexander Hamilton saw with America. What did he see? He saw people doing exchange and bartering and so forth, and it was confusion. And they couldn't put a value on anything. And so he said, look, we're going to create this American dollar. We're going to put a value on it based upon the gold standard. And the value, as gold transfers or transacts and how much supply is available will determine the value of our gold. Now, there must have been a lot of confusion at the time. Then we went up to, and then we had the Bretton Woods agreement with gold and so forth. And then we went off the Bretton Woods system. Everybody said, oh, the world's going to fall apart. That was the first major global, because the dollar is used globally. That everybody now, you're going to do your valuation with trade. You either work and your dollar, what you get, is worth what you work for in terms of a country, or as a citizen, if your country backs your dollars, you can have your dollars is worth so much. And everything started to peg itself in a relationship to the dollar, or it floated in relationship to the dollar. And then we came up and created these things called credit cards. And they sort of changed the nomenclature, but still in a mechanical sense. And they had limits on them, and had all sorts of things there, and you ran into problems. I took my wife down to Australia once, and I bought her some pearls. I bought her these big pearls. She always dreamed of having them. In order for me to do that, I had to put down 3 credit cards. One was enough. Today I walk in and put down 1 credit card, and they can tell me what I have in the bank to cover it within a matter of a second. And that's why I think that we want now to work with you. Those things I put in the paper, you can read them there. They're all about New Bermuda. They're all about, will we change our currency because the Bermuda dollar it's going to be a nuisance value, because it means I got to walk in and get my change there. All about, every time we buy something overseas, whether it's a car, refrigerator, or take a trip and everything, they have to be converted into US dollars. Every time if it's a debt in Bermuda dollars, when it's paid off because the bank borrowed in US dollars, they're going to find the US dollars. So won't we just simply have those US dollars? Why don't we then tie in with the fintech industry and say, we're going to take ourselves to the 21st century, but more importantly, as that industry wants to accommodate like the reinsurance and insurance business, keep in mind the sociology is already there in our brains. We've been programmed for the last 30 years in international transactions. We're ready for you. And what we want to do now is support the government. The Premier is a unique individual, thank God he is. And the fact that he understands technology. He has an education in that area. He has good education, good contacts, and good relationship, and good business experience in that area. So he understands it. And we're going to have to make sure that you have the appropriate legislation and the wherewithal, and we have the monetary authority is highly respected around wherever I've gone in terms of talking to people after us. The monetary authority is held up in great esteem. You don't get that in other jurisdictions. So hopefully we are ready now to give you what you want, Stan.
Yeah, I think what everybody wants, right? Fascinating. Let's pivot just a little bit to the wider picture. So you have a long say resume in terms of your relationships with leaders. So you knew Margaret Thatcher, you worked with Ronald Reagan, you have a lifetime of observing geopolitics. And you touched on it a moment ago, but could you just take a moment to expand and share what is your view of the world at large right now? And to some extent, how do you see this fitting into the landscape?
Shall I escape by going under this couch and hide myself? Well, you know, as I say to people when I go abroad and I get involved with these discussions, I have a unique privilege. I come from Bermuda. I come from a small little island, and the politics of a small island is something I've been involved with so long that I understand it and I just take it for granted. But it causes me then to look at the world itself at large. And you're right. The Maggie Thatcher, the Ronald Reagan era, the Pierre Elliott Trudeau of Canada, Helmut Smith, and you name it. I am fortunate to have met these people and had a relationship with a number of leaders from around the world, including Lee from Singapore. And they all had one thing they wanted. They wanted what was best for their country. You might not think so. They were locked into a political situation within their own country. And as you know, between the media, the politics, and the public, there's always this jostling for position or trying to stratify where you are and what effect can you have.
There you have it, Sir John Swan. Make your moments matter, people. We've been on all fronts tonight. We had guests in the first 90 minutes. Dean Waggenspack and Rose Waggenspack of Dayton, Ohio. The Ledge and the Abyss. And so when you listen to even Sir John and where we are right now in Bermuda, are we on the ledge or are we heading to the abyss? No matter which direction or where we stand, will we make our moments matter? And let us just reflect on that, and that our moments do matter. So John captured some of that in terms of where we are in this world today. And certainly Bermuda recognizing our greater place in the geopolitics that governs our lives. So on that note, my people, we say to you, make your moments matter. How you treat yours, and they treat you. And you know how we do it. We don't fight on any one front. We fight on all fronts.
Bermuda Live on YouTube. Subscribe now.